Hey guys, I'm Becky and welcome back to my channel. So today we're just going to be talking about a simple budget, or as I like to call it, my savings plan. I like to look at it that way because I know that's what I'm putting towards my future, and I'm not trying to look at it in a way that I'm limiting what I can do right now, just because it has a more positive outlook on it. And it's really what the goal of it is to save money so that in the future I don't have to work and I can actually retire and enjoy my retirement there. So I think one of the most important things to keep in mind with this is not budgeting in and of itself and how important that is, but the mindset of making sure that you're living within your means. That basically comes down to not spending more than you make, even though it might be different for each individual in each situation. That's the ultimate goal, and that's the ultimate mindset that you need to have, is that you can't continually spend more than you're bringing in, because if you do that, you're never going to be on top of where you need to be, and you'll always be in debt, and you'll always have to budget, and it just becomes this ever-evolving problem that keeps going on and on. So remember to live within your means and pay yourself first and try and be as happy as you can. So I think it's important to mention there's a couple of common ratios that are passed around. The 50-30-20 is a very common one. 50% of your take-home pay is going to go towards your house and your basic needs and food and water and all of that, and then 30% is going to go towards basically your fun, your personal, your extra clothes, the trips to the zoo, all of that, and then the 20% that's left over is going to go towards your future, so saving for retirement or investing or saving to buy a house or pay off your house, whatever that looks like in that regard. So it's a pretty good ratio to kind of keep in the back of your mind of what most people are kind of aiming for when it comes to breaking down their money in a budget. So when it comes to actually sitting down and making your budget, it's really important to be honest with yourself on how much you're spending and how much you're bringing home, and where you potentially have holes that money is just slipping through that you might not even think about off the top of your head. But the first thing that you need to do is just figure out how much your actual take-home pay is. That can be really simple if there's only one person that has a job in the house, say you have a spouse and they're not working. That makes it simple because you're only getting one paycheck. It gets a little bit more complicated if you have 2 jobs or 3 jobs or you work for yourself, but all in all, you're just going to take what your net pay is after all the taxes and all the insurance and everything that is coming out of it, and that's going to be your take-home pay for the month. So that's going to be your starting point. And then you're going to go and cover the second biggest thing that you need to, and that is going to be your basic needs. The rent to pay for your house, your mortgage, food for your family to eat, water to be able to drink, the utilities to keep the lights on and the house warm and the water running. All those are your basic needs that you have to have. They're just like the foundation of life. So that's going to be the second thing that you're going to identify as what those are and how much money is going to need to be to cover those. So step 3 is going to be paying off your minimum debt balances. So if you have a car loan, you're going to make the minimum payment on that. If you have a student loan, you're going to make the minimum payment on that. So all of your debts that you might have, you're going to want to sit down and list every single one of them. Hopefully you've already been tracking that. I would recommend, if you're doing it by hand, that you use a binder. That's what I've used for years for a lot of different pieces of paper. It's kind of like my I Love Me book. It has all of my important details on it and the basis of my bills and everything. Or you're using an Excel sheet that is absolutely amazing for tracking data and updating and calculating if you can do this or that, or $5 here, $5 there. So I ultimately recommend one of those 2 things, maybe even a mix of both like I use, but they are fundamental for being able to track what you're doing and make sure that you're not missing anything. So you're going to need to figure out all those debts, get them listed out, however many loans you have, and put money towards making those minimum payments. So that's going to be your step number 3. And then the step number 4 for your budget is going to be saving for your future. I like to put this ahead of enjoying life because you always want to pay yourself first. It's going to be the first thing on your list once you have that extra money, is looking, okay, I want to pay myself now. I want to put money towards my future right now because I know in 10 years and 20 years it's going to be worth so much more than the little pleasure I might have by going to the zoo or getting an extra donut, whatever that might be. So that step 4 is going to be paying yourself and saving for your future. So a lot of people recommend that you save 10% of your income. It's kind of increased now to about 15% of your income. So that would be one of the biggest starting points there, is just trying to make that happen if you can. It's a big ask, and it's going to be a long process, and maybe it's only $25 or $30 a month, whatever that is, whatever you can narrow down in your budget, do it. I implore you to do it. The only caveat to that is, if you don't have an emergency fund built up, I would put those 10% or 20%, however the ratio is for you, towards that emergency fund. So don't spend it unless you have that emergency fund built up. Don't invest it unless you have that $1,000, or what I like to think of, 3 to 6 months, basically enough money for 3 to 6 months to cover your expenses, your house, your utilities, your food and your water. If you don't have that set up, don't push that in towards investing yet. Put that towards your emergency fund. So step 5 is where it comes to kind of like enjoying the things in life, because we all know that we're gonna want to go out to eat, and we're gonna want to watch the new movie and go to the concert and travel to a different park or different state or the coast or whatever that might look like. So it might not be that you're paying yourself right now for it. You might not be going to a concert every single month, but you might be saving for the best concert of all in 3 months from now, and you need a certain amount of money to get there. That can cover this too, but you want to make sure that you're not focusing so much on the future and the end game that you're forgetting to enjoy the moments of the life that you have right now. So I want you to take that last little bit that you have, whether it's 20% or 30% or 5%, however your budget might break down, and make sure you're enjoying at least a little bit of your life right now. I don't want you to burn yourself out before you ever get to enjoy life. And then the last step that I think is really important for budgeting is what I've already said earlier, and that is just tracking your money. Tracking what you're doing, tracking how much you're investing, where you're spending your money. My parents have always, as long as I can remember, kept their receipts from all of their spendings, and they bring them together every Sunday, and they just sit down at the counter and they go over it and they balance their checkbook out and make sure that they're understanding what they're spending their money on and how much it truly is costing and where that leaves them. So they do that just about every single week, and they've done that for as long as I can remember, since I was a little girl. So that's a huge thing, is identifying where you're spending your money, especially if you're trying to cut back and you're trying to cut back on your spending and save more. You can really identify things that might be building up and might be more expensive than you thought. Like eating out can be tremendously expensive and can catch up to you very quickly. So if you're tracking it in the book, if you're tracking it in Excel, if you're using an app, if you're keeping all your receipts, whatever works for you, just find what works and keep doing that, because it's really important to understand that. One thing to keep in mind is with some of these expenses, specifically utilities and food and water, those can fluctuate. They're not going to be a static and a fixed expense every single month, whereas like a loan or your mortgage, your rent might be. So you need to take into account that in the winter, your heating bill might be a little bit higher. And in the summer, your water bill might be a little bit higher because you're going to be using more water and more heat depending on what season you're in. So you can kind of track that over time, and that'll help you estimate what you're going to need saved up for those more expensive months with those fluctuating bills that you have. So what happens if you don't have enough at the end of the day to make ends meet, to even cover your basic needs? Well, if you're struggling to cover all of your expenses and you don't have any money left over, you're really not alone. A study conducted by CareerBuilders found that 51% of people that are making less than $50,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. 51%, more than half of people making $50,000 or less are living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have any money saved up. They don't have that emergency fund built up. That is an astronomical amount of number, because a lot of people don't make above that amount. So what can you do if you fall into this situation? You fall into this category. You're trying as hard as you can. Well, this goes back to what you're doing with your budget and how you're tracking. So you should really be taking a hard look at your spending habits. If you can't pay to have the heat on, what can you easily cut back to help you? Are you using cable that you don't need? Are you shopping online for things that you don't need right now but you might need in the future? Or maybe you're going out and you're having a night on the town, or you're smoking cigarettes, or you're drinking more than one or two, whatever that might be. Cutting back is going to be one of the quickest ways to help yourself identify what might be some options for you, especially if you're spending on things that aren't really needs, they're more wants and kind of gratification in that round. Now, not everyone wants to make cuts. Not everybody wants to give out going downtown or eating out or having cable TV. There's some people that just absolutely refuse. And the CareerBuilder study actually found that that's quite a large population of people that don't want to give up those things. In fact, they said the top items were the internet, 54% of people, and the phone, just your cell phone, 53%, and driving, 48%, cable, 21%. But it doesn't have to be this ultimatum. You have to give it up all the way completely. You can never have it. What if you took the bus to work once a week and only ate out twice a month for the next 3 years? I know that's a long time, 3 years, but what if you did that? Once a week, you took the bus and you only ate out twice a month. What if that fixed your problem? What if that meant that you could pay for your heat and you could pay for your water and you could pay for your clothes that you have to go to work with? It's a fluid process of giving and taking and understanding what your needs really are in this life and what's really important to you. So one of the biggest monthly costs that people are going to encounter is actually their housing, their rent, their mortgage, whatever they're staying in, the tent out back, whatever it might be. So if you find yourself struggling to make that payment, you might want to consider downsizing for a few years, or refinancing your home, or looking at moving to a lower cost area and commuting into work. If you have a car loan, it might be important to look at, do I really need the car that I have? Is it more expensive? Could I get something for less money, maybe pay cash, that runs just the same, gets me from A to B to C just the same, but isn't as fancy, and use that money from selling the fancier car, the newer car, and putting that towards your debts or getting food or creating that emergency fund. So that's an option to look at. You could go to a smaller house, you could go to a less expensive car, maybe one that you don't have to have a loan on. Another option is really just looking at, how can I increase my monthly income? If you only have one job and it's not bringing enough money, you're really looking at not a lot of options with that. It's not going to be an easy process, but you might need to take out a second job for a year, maybe a couple months, maybe a summer job. Maybe you start delivering with Uber Eats or delivering pizza for Pizza Hut. Those small little changes that you make are going to pay off in the long run for you. It's going to take a ton of hard work and sacrifice and dedication, and knowing that you might pinch yourself right now. It might not be the most comfortable situation for the next month or 2 months or a year or maybe even 2 years, but the gains on the back end are going to be so important. Because if you don't make that change now and identify that you need to make that change, it's going to hurt you for a long, long time. So what are some ways to kind of help you budget? Because I know it's hard. It can be really hard to at least get into the habit of budgeting and understanding that you need to allocate where certain funds are going and how much you're going to spend on something. So my personal strategy, I use separate bank accounts. It doesn't mean I have 4 individual bank accounts within my same bank. I just have it separated into 4 like mini accounts that fall under one big account. And I have that broken down into one is my emergency fund, my fallback fund, my fund that if I ever break my leg and I need help, that's what that is. And then I have one that is my long-term savings. Right now my checking account has a very good return rate, so I'm very happy with that. One account is for housing expenses. I'm gonna have to have some repairs coming. I've got a ton of yard work that I need to do this spring. There's gonna be things that come up unexpected and I'm gonna have to pay for them out of pocket, and I have that account set up so that I can use that and not not have to worry about it. And then I have one that's just for my fun stuff. I love to travel. I love to go to national parks in different states and just kind of explore road tripping. So that's my fourth fund, is just having that knowing, like, if I need to take a couple $100 and go on a trip, I can. It's there for me. So I do that manually after each one of my paydays. I don't have it set up where a certain percentage goes into allotment on it. I'm more hands-on approach with my money. That's just my personal opinion. You don't have to do that. I know that, at least with my company, you can set it up so that your check gets deposited into different accounts. So if you needed to, you could have it set up so if you had direct deposit at work, you could have 10% go automatically into a separate account that you just know. That is my emergency fund, that's my long-term savings, that's my down payment for my house fund, whatever it might be. And you don't even have to worry about it. You just know that it's going in there month after month. So that's something to keep in mind. Another method that works well for people that are more, they want to deal with the cash themselves, they like depositing the check and cashing it out and dealing with it by paper money. A good method for that is just simply using an envelope. You can have an envelope that is specifically for your rent and know that you need to go, I need to put, $60 this week towards my rent. And you just put it in there. And then this is my rent. And you can have another one set up and say, I'm gonna need gas money this month. I know that I typically am spending about $40 on gas a month, or whatever it might be. And then you pull $40 and you go, okay, so this is my gas fund. And then you go, I'm gonna need food. I want to go out to dinner. So let's set up a fund for me to go out to dinner. So let's put $40 towards going out to dinner. So you put money in the cash envelope. And then at the end of it, you have a bunch of different envelopes that are all labeled and identified for what they are. And this envelope's for my rent, and this one is, I can't remember what it was for, but very important, gas money. And this one is for eating out. And so, once you use what's in that envelope, there's nothing left. So it's just a way of organizing your money in a different way. If you're more hands-on, like physical, tangible money, this is a great system that works for that. Or even just having a binder where you have different pages that it can go into. Whatever works for you is honestly the best way to go about it. And you don't have to choose one option and stick with it forever. You can definitely try different ways that go with it. One tip that I have heard from quite a few people is just knowing ahead of time that you're going to need extra money for Christmas and Easter and the birthdays that are going to come up, and setting aside money, whether that is an envelope of $5 or $10 every single month, or a separate checking account or banking account that just a lot specifically for that, so that by the time that comes up, you've already got money set up and basically set aside for it, and you can just easily pull that in and buy the Christmas gifts or the birthday gifts or whatever it is and not have to worry about it, because you know that you're putting $5 or $10 a month into that. So that's a really good idea to focus on if that's something that you struggle with and you like to plan it out ahead of time. Another good thing to keep in mind is grocery shopping. We're going to spend a lot of money on our food over the years, and one of the best ways that you can go ahead and stop yourself from buying excess is simply planning it out, knowing what meals you're going to make. If you're going to make spaghetti, if you're going to make meatballs, if you're going to make steak, whatever it is, knowing that ahead of time and making a list, literally what you're going to eat, eggs, milk, bread, butter, the basics that you're going to need, and planning that out before you go to the store. So you have a game plan, you walk in there, you get what you need, and you get out without buying something that you don't. Another thing to keep in mind with that is don't go to the store if you're hungry. It's a horrible experience because everything just sounds so good. Marketing is so good at what they do that they put it right where it needs to be, and you want those Cheetos, you want the Snickers bar, you're gonna want the chips. So eat before you go, don't go hungry. It'll save you money. Another thing to maybe look at is actually using an app or a store that does grocery pickup, and just ordering what you need online and just showing up, putting it in your car, and getting out of there. It might end up saving you time and a little bit of money in the long run. So keep that in mind when you're looking at ways you can cut back on your spending. So one of the last things to kind of keep in mind with this is it's really important to reevaluate your budget or your savings plan. You don't want to be stuck on the same one that you've been using for the last 5 years. You want to make sure you're taking into account that some months you're going to end up spending more on expenses and money towards gas or food than you might in other months, or maybe even years. Maybe you have a baby and it throws a wrench in everything that you have and you don't know how much money you're going to need. So you're going to need to sit down and reevaluate what kind of money you're bringing in. Did you get a loan? Did you get a raise? Excuse me. Did you get a raise? Did you get a promotion? Did you get fired? Did you get a demotion? Those are things to keep in mind and understand that when something like that happens, you're going to need to sit down and reevaluate how you're allocating your money in your budget. And as I said earlier, it's really important to kind of track what you're doing, track what you're spending, track what you're saving, and how it's working out for you. Are you cutting back too hard? Are you not having enough money to cover the food or whatever it might be? You want to be able to identify what month that was. If your gas bill is higher in the winter and you didn't plan, you want to be able to write that down and save that somewhere so that when it comes back to the next year, you know that you're going to need a little bit more money for the gas or the water or whatever it might be in that regard. So tracking that and using that to kind of build off of it and have that safety net and that plan behind you can really help you. It's also important to make sure that you're keeping it organized, whether that is using Excel or using the receipts and putting them all in a little box or using a binder, whatever it is. As long as it works for you and your family and you keep organized, that's all that really matters. And you can make it as simple or as detailed as you want to be. It just kind of depends on what works for you. But I think it's important to keep in mind that even if you can only save maybe $10 or $15, maybe $25 a month towards your future and towards your retirement, that's something. It's better than absolutely nothing. It's going to end up paying off in the long run. Those little itty bitty increments will build on, and the beautiful thing of compounding interest is going to come in and really help you out with that. So every little bit counts. Every penny that you pick up is going to help you. So keep that in mind with the long run. And another thing to keep in mind is just understanding that you're going to have a long-term reward for what you're doing right now. So if you're feeling like you're sacrificing a lot right now and you're not getting everything you want, just evaluate that towards that tiny little boost that you're going to get today. Maybe it's from a candy bar or something like that, and how good you're going to feel in the long run once you have that money and that security built up. So just keep that in mind as you're making your decisions, and just keep working on it. No one's perfect. It's going to take probably months and months to get it knocked out and kind of evened out and get set up on a pretty even, steady keel for your budget. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be a little bit of fluctuation and flexibility from everybody involved, but I promise you it will pay off. I hope you learned something. I hope you go ahead and make a budget if you don't already have one, and I'll see you next time. Good boy. You know you are. Hi, puppers. I love you.